Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to another episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movies. This week, Sarah is helping me out. We have to do kind of a last-minute change-up. Yeah, so we
I
had
think
to...
I'm contractually obligated to do that,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Big Paul sent me a letter talking about how he never wanted to talk to me again. He disavows me. He's
Tragic.
disavow. He sent it through the post, which I think he said it was supposed to have been here a couple days ago, but you know how what's going on with the post office, so they have no
Man,
sorting machine.
you're lucky you got it in a couple days.
I know, right? Usually it takes a couple years, but it ended up being a snafu. He just mixed up the letters. The letter that I got was actually supposed to go to his son.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
so...
Ooh, it's gonna be
Yeah,
tough to find out
so
on
his son got a much more collegial letter. You know, much more like, "Hey man, something came up."
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, pretty embarrassing on his part, if you ask me. Pretty
Glad I
embarrassing.
could glad I could help out.
Yeah, so we kind of just randomly, kind of quickly had to kind of put something together. So this will be a little bit more light, a little more, we picked something that we actually kind of already have a lot of familiarity with. So we picked Zack Snyder's The Watchmen, or Watchmen rather, in honor of the of DC Fandom. They released the first teaser trailer for the Snyder cut of Justice League, and also they released a few other trailers. They did like Suicide Squad. They had like a little teaser for that, which wasn't any footage, but it's just like the characters.
And it's like, I guess, on-set stuff, because I watched a little bit of that, too.
Yeah, and but also the big thing that we were excited about was Matt Reeves' new version of The Batman.
Yes.
They dropped a trailer for that.
At first, I think you remember when I first found out who was playing Batman, I was just like, nah, son. But after tonight,
Yes, Sarah's one of these judgy people. She's like one of these people who've been like, Heath Ledger. Ugh.
And I was actually.
I know. I'm sure you were. This is before I knew you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Pattinson's been quietly. I don't like him as a person. I find him very off-putting. I've watched a bunch of interviews with him. He's a little off-putting, but as an actor, he has over the past, I would say, close to a decade at this point, really kind of just become an interesting actor. Takes interesting roles. Is always kind of trying new things, doing weird stuff.
And what was it, The Lighthouse?
Yeah, that was a more recent one.
That was really good. I did hear. I think that's one of the only things I've really actually seen him in. I heard a personal anecdote that made me laugh about him, but I haven't really watched any interviews with him either. I just Twilight I saw like one Twilight and I was like, this is garbage.
God. That's so awful. Like, how could you do that to this young man? He's out there trying. Like, anybody in his shoes would be like, do you want to be in this blockbuster franchise? He'd say, yes, I do.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I probably would have done the same thing. So
exactly, anybody would have. And you over here, you judge the man based on.
He's got a dumb face, but whatever.
He's got a stupid looking mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's been doing stuff like with David Cronenberg for a while. I mean, Cosmopolis, when he did the adaptation, the film version of the book Cosmopolis.
I have the book, but I've never.
It's actually my copy of the book, so.
Whatever.
Nice try.
Who cares?
Nice try, witch.
No.
But no, I've just liked him. He's been in some science fiction movies. High Life, I'd recommend to people. It's a weird sci-fi movie. So I was kind of down with him to be Batman. I've been looking forward to seeing what it looked like what he had done as an actor, like what choices did he make. And I don't know if this trailer really informs like him as his performance. I don't know if you really learn much. It's more of just like a tone piece. Like, this is the tone of the movie, and it looks like a Batman Year One style. Even though I heard a little bit of news because they talked about it before they played the trailer. This is like Batman's second year of activity, and apparently this is like I guess it's going to be its own thing. I don't think it's going to be connected to the rest of the DCEU, unless it is connected with like the multiverse stuff that they also announced today.
It doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I think they were like, yeah, we'll just do like an Elseworld thing when we get like cool pitches. So we'll do like Joker or the Batman, like things that are self-contained, but they don't want to do it all the time. They don't want one to come out every
Character
year.
studies, kind of, and I kind of think that's more interesting because we're so inundated with superheroes
Yeah, they have
and
to do
these.
something. They have to do something to change it up, right?
So yeah, so these like kind of different character studies, even however you feel about Joker or whatever. It was interesting that it was just like a one-off character study, kind of, or at least that's my opinion.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
in a way, it was a little more refreshing for that. I'll give it that. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
yeah. I'm interested to see him more as a detective too. I guess that's kind of what it seems like to me. It's gonna be more of like the detective side of Batman, which I'm glad to see
yeah.
because
Him and
it
Commissioner
kind
Gordon
of,
seem like they're working together on like this Riddler. Paul Dano plays the Riddler.
which his voiceover was like, I was like, ah,
And
you know.
actually, even Colin Farrell's the Penguin makes a very momentary appearance.
It's crazy. I had to when I watched it because I watched it a couple times. It took me that like second time. I was like, oh shit, that's who that is. You know what
Yeah,
I
well,
mean?
he's like kind of unrecognizable. I mean,
Hmm.
and it's a very subtle makeup. It just looks like a larger man, like a heavier set, like
Yeah,
dude
with
with
like
kind
a
of a
just a
pointy nose. It's very
nose.
and it doesn't look at all like comical or silly. It just literally looks like a. You could see that and think that's just a regular person, like a regular actor. Somebody
Yeah.
made a joke. They're like, "Oh, if you want to make your penguin look like a 53-year-old off-Broadway actor from New York who gets his break in a Coen Brothers movie late in life, like that's the vibe he puts off."
That's
But
funny.
I really like the trailer. I thought, I mean, it's like 7.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
and it feels, but it does feel like the '80s era Batman, like Frank Miller's Batman Year One
Hmm.
kind of tone.
Yeah, I was very. I like that it's gritty. I like it. I
Yeah,
like it.
people that complain about grim dark Batman, go fuck yourselves. Like you're so
That's
lame. You're so fucking just contrarian. And as a contrarian, I think you're lame.
I can
I
see
think you're
that.
losers. I just saw people like, "Oh, this is just the degradation of society, the nihilism." You're like, go back and read your stupid Marvel comic books, you fucking fucks. I've really like those the MCU has turned me hard against Marvel. So,
Get out of here.
um yeah, I love the trailer. I thought
And
it
you told
sets
me
a
you said it's
perfect
supposed to
tone.
be rated R. It's good. They're shooting for a rated
Well,
R.
I don't. That's not an official statement. I think, though, the fact that they have decided, it seems like this is not going to be connected to the DCEU. Like it's going
Right.
to be Elseworlds tale. I think they're going to feel the freedom to do that. And
Yeah.
a rated R Batman movie would probably make just as much, if not more, than the Joker. I mean, the Joker broke $1 billion. That was a
Right.
rated R movie. I think
Right.
if they just went for it with Batman, I think it would it would probably make $1 billion. I'd go see it 6 times, and then I'd torrent it and watch it 7 more.
Oh, no, you wouldn't torrent it. You
No,
wouldn't
of
be
course
taking
not.
away from the struggling cinema enterprises
That's
right
true.
now.
Right now, we got to help them
Don't
out, guys.
do it. Yeah.
Go see Unhinged this weekend, only in
Yeah.
theaters.
You liked it, so.
I liked it for what it was. But if anybody wants to know my opinion, you go watch my video. Go watch my videos. You see my
There you go.
videos? Go
Plug,
watch
plug,
my
plug.
videos. Yeah, I love the trailer. It exceeded my expectations. I didn't know what to expect from it. Like, because I'd seen some behind the sets photos and stuff. They don't tell you
Isn't
like
there
what
a
it's gonna be
Nirvana
like.
song in it? So that's like
Dude,
double like
yeah,
yeah.
I know something in the way. I was like, because it takes place in the '90s. I was like, it makes sense. I
I'll
love.
give it a I'll give it a pass.
I hope the whole movie is scored to Nirvana remixes. Maybe get some orchestrated ones. Smells like Teen Spirit, the first fight, orchestrated.
Then I might have to pass. I'm kidding.
Yeah, Sarah's got this weird thing where she's also a contrarian, like you Batman haters and you Matt Reeves haters, and she's like,
I just
"Oh,
don't like Nirvana. Like
Nirvana's fine, it's fine. I just heard it so
those.
much." She heard 4 songs so much, and it ruined it forever.
That's not also. It's not why I dislike Nirvana so much.
I just wanted to see if
Okay.
you'd take the bait, but
Yeah, no.
And you did.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I'm curious to see how they're going to interplay all the villains because I got really excited that Riddler was in it because then and then they started slowly announcing more and more because it could be one of those like build-on stories where it's like going to throw in all these loops with the different villains and stuff. So
well, I hope they don't overdo it too much in that capacity. It seems like it's going to be the Riddler, and then the Penguin is going to be like he is in a lot of the comic books from the days of yore. Is that he is like a mob boss?
He's just Cobblepot at this point, you know.
Well, he's also a mob boss. He runs he runs Gotham Underground. Like he is like he's like one of the competing factions. Yeah, ooh, DeVito style.
Right?
No, he's one of the just competing factions in Gotham City for supremacy of the underworld. Like that's just
Right. No,
what
yeah.
it is. So it seems like they're going to go with that, and then Catwoman, obviously.
Well, see, my mind always jumps to things like, like in Hush, where it's like that layered reveal of just like, well, you think it's this, but no, it's this, so that might be kind of fun.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some twists and turns along the way. I'm glad that it's the Riddler, though. I think he isn't underutilized in the cinematic world. The Riddler is very underutilized.
Well, I mean, Jim Carrey went so big with it, they had to rest it for ever.
Like 24 years.
You see what I did there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, Nicholson, people thought they were intimidated to follow up Nicholson. Nah. It's Carrey. James.
Well, it's actually
Rutherford Carey.
Probably it's actually Arnold. I mean, no one's gonna touch Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze will never be in a movie again because they're too afraid. They're too afraid. Maybe after he dies, maybe they'll feel safe.
It's like, all right, it's time. It's time to bring him out.
or you know what? We just bring him back.
No, but he has to do the same tone of
in
Mr.
same
Freeze,
costume.
but they put it into the world of this new Batman, which is dark and somber. But then he just comes in like stay cool and like does the finger guns and like
Oh, yeah.
I'm in for that.
Sing. He's making all of his henchmen sing. Was it Mr. Christmas or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, do you have any final thoughts on the Batman trailer before we move on to the next thing?
No, I'm just excited.
It looks rad. Yeah. Looks cool.
Yeah.
It definitely just makes me excited for it. I didn't know what to think about it. I'm a little superheroed out, but I'll definitely be there for this for sure.
Yeah.
And I just would briefly talk about just because we're Zack Snydering it up tonight. We decided, I was like, in celebration of the resurrection of Zack Snyder coming back, taking his artistic endeavor and taking back hold of it, releasing a wild 4-hour version in about a year, or probably a little less than a year. I think it's going to come out in the spring sometime, of the Justice League. And they released the first teaser, which was basically all new footage for the most part. There wasn't really anything that I saw, and I've seen that movie quite a few times for some reason. I've seen the
Don't say for some reason. You are a glutton for it.
Yeah, I like to punish myself. I just like the actors. Like I like just seeing like Ben Affleck as Batman. So like I will watch it.
He's actually a good old man Batman. I don't care what people say. I thought
he's a great Batman.
I'm not a big, what's his name, Ezra Miller person, but he was fine as the Flash. I really liked the guy who played Cyborg. I think he did great.
Yeah, Ray Fisher.
Even though I'm really enjoying the guy in Doom Patrol. I don't know.
Are you really?
I am.
Is that a joke?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I honestly, I don't know. I think it's, I don't know, but I think I even like Jason Momoa as Aquaman.
I think it's cast very well. I mean, it's everybody's pretty spot on.
I really like how they went with Aquaman, and just on a side note, because I do think the Islander kind of aspect of it makes a lot of sense. Like I was like,
it does. How do you feel about the Zack Snyder's DC movies in general? Do you like them?
Do I like them? They're fine.
Are you a hater? I tried to. I originally had said, "Oh, we should watch Man of Steel." In celebration, and Sarah was like, "No."
I don't really like Superman that much. Is that like a crime? Like I can't. He's boring.
You're sick, buddy. And then I was gonna say, "Oh, maybe we should watch BVS," but then I was like, no, that's 3 hours long. And then we ended up watching the director's
Watching
cut.
almost a 3-hour-long movie.
I mean, because the only other Zack Snyder movie I think I own is maybe like Dawn of the Dead. No, I own Sucker Punch. That's right, because I said we were
Yeah,
watching
because you
Watchmen.
were
I
like,
was like,
oh,
oh, we should watch Sucker Punch.
which we'll probably end up doing.
Maybe at some point. But how do you like Zack Snyder?
He's fine. I think he's distracting sometimes from what I've seen. I guess Man of Steel was the least distracting because it's not as flashy, I suppose, as I've seen him be. If that makes any sense.
I think Man of Steel is the most like straightforward, grounded of the ones that came
like
out.
Superman? Okay, yeah.
Of the DCEU movies, because they changed tact because of the reaction to that movie. That's the problem with the DCEU back then, or at least at that time, was that every movie that came out, they just were reflexive to whatever critics said and whatever audiences said. So they never like just went for what they had intended. So they were constantly course correcting. That's why BVS.
Definitely support them.
I do. I mean, I am. If I am going to be into any superhero stuff, it is just the DC stuff. So I like, I understand where some Marvel people are coming from when they watch those movies that are not very good. But you just you're just stoked to see like a character that you like or something be represented on screen, and it's cool. Like I wish the movies were better, or more coherent. But I really like Ben Affleck as Batman, so it actually makes, and I really like Henry Cavill as Superman.
Yeah, I think they're cast well, and I think they hit a groove with that kind of stuff. I like Gal Gadot. Is it Gal Gadot? Right?
I believe. I think it is Gadot. Yeah. Get out, mate.
I don't want to misspeak.
Get out, matey.
I think she's I love the Wonder Woman movie a ton.
Yeah, see, for me, that one is actually lessened in esteem every time I see it.
Well, I've only seen it a handful, so maybe if I watch it more than that. But I just really enjoyed it. I thought she was a great Wonder Woman. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I think the one I've enjoyed out of the DC movies, though, the one I enjoyed least was Aquaman.
You know what's weird about Aquaman? I think you should give Aquaman another chance, because I think Aquaman is really dumb, and it leans into it so hard that it just becomes entertaining at some point. Like that's what I enjoy about Aquaman. I would never say oh, people should ever run out and watch Aquaman, but Aquaman is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, I get distracted.
Just becomes endearing.
I get distracted by the visual effects.
Yeah, it's very effective.
It's like, whoa, it's like kind of just like messy.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I mean,
that's like what happens with a movie when it takes place underwater, And
it's also like de-aged Nicole Kidman. You're like, ooh.
That was one of the better de-agings, honestly.
Well, I mean, she's had enough work to where they didn't have to do a ton to her, but it's still distracting. Like I'm just like,
oh, poor Nicole. Poor Nicole. What did society do to Nicole Kidman that made her feel she needed to do that? It's fucking Scientologists. I'm glad she's with that other guy.
Oh, is that country guy? Keith something.
Keith Urban?
I don't. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Country man. But yeah, anyway, so let's get back to the real shit here. Okay, listen. I am very happy that Zack Snyder is getting his movie, especially even just beyond I want to see what he intended the movie to be like.
I think that's what I'm most curious about.
I mean, beyond, I have a feeling I know. I've seen the other two movies. I understand where he's going, and the story that he built was working towards. He's going to try to finish that, or at least finish what he can, because they're not doing the rest of his plan or their collective plan. But the reason why the studio was kind of greasy, kind of gross when his daughter committed suicide.
Yeah.
So he had to leave. He had to leave the production, basically. He tried to keep working, and he just couldn't do it. And then they were trying to get him out before that, though.
and then they use it as an opportunity, which is pretty shitty. And then who did they call? Who did they call?
Joss
Oh
Whedon.
my god, terrible.
Well, they called Joss Whedon because he did the Avengers, and they're like, "This is a group movie. We need somebody who can do that." And he had been trying to get into DC for a while. Joss Whedon originally, years and years ago, was going to do a Wonder Woman movie that he
Right.
wrote. I think there was even rumors that maybe Sarah Michelle Gellar had been approached about it. But in the more current times, when he was doing the Justice League stuff, they announced that he was going to do a Batgirl movie. That's been canceled.
Yeah.
That's been canned. But I mean, it'll probably come back in some form or another. But it's not going to be his Batgirl. But
I remember the first time we watched it at home, so we weren't like talking in a theater or whatever. And I just remember us like when you could tell when his dumb jokes were in the script, and it was just like eye roll after eye roll. It's just like to me it's like yeah.
He's a very quippy writer. He writes in quips.
But not in a good way, where you get like get your couple good clips in and then you just keep moving. It's just like some scenes you're just like, okay, stop, just enough.
But I like and I have my criticisms for most of Zack Snyder's movies. There's things I like about him, things I don't like about him, and I don't think I've ever said this on Zoobox Goes to the Movies. I used to say it all the time back when these movies were coming out. Sarah and I used to do. Every once in a great while, we do a little podcast. They are on YouTube somewhere.
We are the OG.
Yeah, but I would say I would rather watch somebody swing for the fences and miss a little bit.
Yeah.
And it be kind of a mess, rather than watch something that's just like pandering and mediocre.
Yeah, 100%. Or you can tell that they compromised a ton for the studio, which happens a lot, especially in these superhero movies.
Well, the Marvel thing is really egregious. It's like
I will give it that. Yeah.
Well, they're pandering to the Chinese film market. They actually censor themselves. It's very weird. I was reading an article where this is a side tangent where they were trying to make the kid that was in Iron Man 3 a Chinese kid. To be reflective of the life of Xi Jinping, who is now the president of China, so that the censors won't bother them. They have to appeal to the Chinese censor board because they have a quota of how many movies they'll allow from other countries into their movie theaters, and these big studios want their big movies over there because they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. Yeah. So. That stuff's gross. But anyways, yeah. So I'm glad that it's coming out. It looks cool. I would not say I'm a super fan of the Snyderverse, but I like what he's going for. I like that he tries to go big with it. Like he really wants to kind of impart the sense of the mythic back into these superheroes, and it's a lot of things to think about. I think he's a little clunky. He's kind of comes at it almost like a meathead a little bit. You're like, oh, that's cute, man. You're trying to have this conversation, but maybe you're just not. He's not a nuanced enough filmmaker for it not to feel clunky. It just feels clunky sometimes. But I respect it though. I enjoy them on some level for sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how different his story for the Justice League is, or at least just.
Yeah.
I probably should rewatch his movies to get more of a sense of where he was trying to go. I really think Man of Steel, we saw it in the theater. I think I watched it one more time after that. I was just like, no more. So maybe I should revisit it.
I have a completely different memory of the last time you watched it because we both walked away being like, oh, that was way better than we remember it being. Because
did I?
we both kind of had a negative perspective on it. And even when I saw it when it came out, I wrote a review that was definitely harsh. And I still have the same problem. I mean, there's a problem in that movie that nothing can fix, and there's no amount of times I'll watch it that I'll like that. I think I think in his desire to be cynical and grounded about superheroes, because everything is the Watchmen, which we'll talk about for Zack Snyder. He sees them all through that prism. He destroyed the integrity of the Kents. The Kents were awful human beings.
Yeah, you were very upset about that.
Well, because that's the defining thing about Superman. Not only does he have all these great, extraordinary powers, he was just raised better than most people. He's a middle America person, salt of the earth, like good values, good morals. And
Manners.
his fucking dad is a monster in this fucking movie. And then in BVS, his mom literally tells him, "Listen, you don't need to be a hero. Fuck off. Like fuck these people."
Yeah,
Like,
I remember that. That was kind of
you're like,
weird.
what are you doing? You're Superman's mom.
Stop it, Martha.
It's crazy, but that is the one thing in Man of Steel that I like cannot fucking stand.
And I,
It
I will say
bothers me.
that it took watching the director's cut of Batman versus Superman for me to really like that movie. So it took adding a little more of his choices because there were some holes and gaps that need to be filled in, and I felt a little more satisfied after watching the director's cut. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, 100. It's a better movie, even though it's
I tell
longer.
people that
Actually,
all the time when we talk about it. I'm like, you have to watch the director's cut of it because there are some weird little loopholes that get tied up that make it, you're like, it's not so crazy or so bad, you know.
no,
Still not the best. It's still
there's a
not the best.
huge there's subplots that are just completely excised from the theatrical cut that stop things from like making sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Ultimate Edition, because it's not even called the director's cut. So I don't know
Oh,
why it's called. I don't know why. It's just like the Ultimate Edition. You're like, why not just call the director's cut? Because I think he was trying to play nice with the studio, and he's like, I won't call it a director's cut because I don't want to say the movie I put in theaters is not my preferred cut.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyways, yeah, it looks cool. Cool enough for me. Enticing enough. It doesn't show very much. It's all
I'll
kind
give
of
it a
random
watch.
stuff. But
I
yeah.
wouldn't say it's enticing. I'll give it a watch.
And, the Wonder Woman 84 movie kind of looks the same. It looks alright.
I really, like I said, I like the first Wonder Woman. I also, you're gonna probably get annoyed with me. I'm very still reserved about Kristen. Kristen Wiig. I just want to call her Kirsten Wiig.
I think she is.
I'm just nervous.
She's like I understand why you cast Kirsten Wiig in that part, and I also think like why couldn't we just have given this to somebody that's not like a overtly comedic actress? Because when she's gonna play the beleaguered nerd, she's gonna be like, oh, like pushing up her glasses, and you're like, come on, like, and you know she's gonna do that shtick.
Half the time when I see her, just in a picture or like whatever, I can't help but not see her MacGruber character. You know what I mean? So I have like all these weird attachments to her. So I'm just kind of like, oh, and then like Ghostbusters really.
I don't think she's like an awful dramatic actress or anything. It just seems like a mismatch. Like I don't. Why does Cheetah have to be? Kirsten Wiig is not some sort of. I don't see comic book villainess. I mean, maybe if she had been like Dr. Poison or something from the first movie, like I could have seen that. Maybe. Well, maybe not.
No.
I actually like the Doctor
German accent that would have just been too much.
I like the Dr. Poison in the first movie. I wish actually Dr. Poison was like the main villain. She's not. She's like a lackey.
Yeah, because women can't. I'm kidding.
They're not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not done. Not in America. Not now. Okay. But yeah. Anyways,
that's okay. Yeah, we'll probably watch it anyway, though.
of course. Yeah, of course I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I watch all of those movies.
Well, especially because our son's getting to that age where he'll actually kind of pay attention to stuff sometimes. So
he's weird though. He like he it's hard to get him to watch. Because I tried to get him to watch Justice League because Justice League the theatrical cut is very like bright and there's a lot of spent a lot of time in costume,
right,
stuff like that, and he was just not interested in it. But he really he went through.
He's in the pudding, man.
He went through a period last year where I got Batman '89 on 4K, and he wanted to watch it like all the time.
Yes.
So we watched Batman '89 probably like 10 times last summer.
Yeah, I remember we would just be like, for nap time, he would just ask to put that on. It's like, can we watch Batman? So you try to, and he'd be like, no. And very specifically, it was that Batman.
Yeah.
I'm with that, though. That should, see, again, proof is in the pudding from the mouths of babes.
I like Batman '89 just as much as the next guy. Probably more. It's a childhood movie of mine. But I had enough last summer. But anyways, now we're going to talk about the topic of the day. Zack Snyder's 2009 film Watchmen. It's written by David Hayter and Alex. I don't know how to say this. TSE. Alex T.
Say?
Alex Say. David Hayter, if you guys don't know, is the original voice of Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series. He's also a screenwriter, director. It stars Jackie Earle Haley, Patrick Wilson, Carla Gugino, Maureen Ackerman, Billy Crudup, Matthew Good, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Patrick Wilson, Matt Frewer, and others. The plot synopsis is, in 1985, where former superheroes exist, the murder of a colleague sends active vigilante Rorschach into his own sprawling investigation, uncovering something that could completely change the course of history as we know it. And this is obviously adapted from Alan Moore's seminal work from the 80s, the thing that made him never work with like a publisher ever again, like a form.
Yeah. He started writing in 85. It was released in 87.
And it was conceived originally as he was going to use DC heroes, and they were kind of like, well, no, because he had done the Killing. Had he done the Killing Joke before this? Before he did Watchmen? Isn't that how he gets to do Watchmen? Is because he does the Killing Joke?
Yeah, but then I'm sorry, I'm like looking at notes because I had written something down. Sorry. I think Killing Joke was before this, but it was
Killing Joke. No, Killing Joke is after.
After. But he based. So it's actually I couldn't remember the name of it's the Charlton comics that he actually ends up using all the bases for all the Watchmen.
Yeah.
From, and they're all like. They all are they're like Kmart versions of DC people. So they have their own like detective, rich, wealthy guy. It's not Batman, but it is Batman.
Yeah, and he does
that's who he ends up really basing them all off of.
Yeah, and he does some personality swapping. Like Night Owl looks like Batman, but Rorschach acts like Batman. Like
yes.
They do that kind of some of those things. Those dichotomies, those dualities, he represents them in partners, kind of split a character into two. He's kind of a famous recluse. He says that he is a wizard. Yeah,
he's a wizard.
He's never liked anything that's ever been adapted of his material. I believe did he see V for Vendetta and then disown, and he was like so disgusted that I don't remember.
I didn't really ever invest that much into V for Vendetta. I like it just fine.
No, I'm saying his reaction to it. The reason officially turned him off to Hollywood was they adapted something of his, and he was like mortified.
Yeah,
because him as the writer can't have any creative control in that circumstance. So, I
mean, he's a wizard. He could totally like.
Well, I guess good. He's probably over there putting fucking hexes on people that work on his. His work. Yeah.
Because I know he was definitely probably. I read a couple things he said about Watchmen, but he was like very upset.
I doubt he ever watched it.
He didn't watch it.
No. I can't imagine he ever watched it. I guarantee you he never read those prequel books, and then they did like a Crisis on Infinite Worlds thing where Watchmen is now canon DC.
Yep.
Like with the superheroes now.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was a little weird.
I didn't even read I really love Watchmen. Really love Watchmen. But I never read the prequel ones either.
No, I was
very when they announced that, it was like, why?
Cool, because that's really the thing, is like, why? You're just merchandising. There is no creative reason. Maybe, you know what?
Kind of like, man, when they announced the TV show, it was like, why?
Well, I've never read them, so I can't say like, oh, they're creatively bankrupt. I'm sure the people that worked on them worked very hard and really had good intentions. But for DC to commission them is the cynical part. Like, that's where the cynicism comes in. The TV show, we did watch the TV show. It was interesting that it was going to be a sequel.
Well, can I tell you something? I did appreciate a little bit more about... I still had some weird questions as being kind of like, as much as I like Watchmen as I do, I had some weird questions that kind of... trying to be kind of exact to the story, sort of like sit in my head. Just little weird hiccups. But I did appreciate a couple more little nuances, I guess, from the show after tonight and rewatching the movie. Because I hadn't rewatched Watchmen in like a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
The movie. I think we watched it maybe a couple years ago.
We might have, yeah. Probably. It's a good chance.
Well, no, I'm just saying like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think we've watched it.
It's been a while. I actually, no, I watched it like a year and a half ago or a year
I
ago.
don't know if I watched that recent. I mean, I know I watched it pretty intensely when I was trying to write those. I was trying to write a collection of essays on Watchmen. I know I watched that. I watched it a few times while I was doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's been a couple years for me. But now that after the rewatch, there was a couple things in the show that I appreciated a little bit more, I guess.
Sure.
Parts of it I really don't like though.
There are tons.
Middle of that show. It's a lot of people like freaked out and loved it. It's fine.
I think it like thematically makes sense why they go in the direction they go with the show. I think it gets in its own way a lot though, because there's stuff I really liked about it. There's some of the casting I really liked.
Oh, Jeremy Irons is perfect as Ozymandias.
I'm just not into like woke scolding. Like, just it feels like a lecture at times, and it's not that I have a problem like discussing that subject matter, like racism in America or whatever. Like, I don't like that's not a problem. It's when you feel like you're being lectured at, and they're like, and it feels like this is what I felt like before we go back to the movie. I felt like it is a movie written by a middle-aged white person that's trying to impress his other middle-aged white friends about how not racist he is.
The movie or the show?
No, the show.
Oh, you said movie, so I was like, wait a minute.
No, I said before we get back to the movie.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
that's what. Okay, that's what it felt like to me. Like the writing in the show, like the scene-to-scene writing, the dialogue. It just felt like bad, and it felt like somebody almost like a middle-aged white person being defensive.
Yeah.
And then wanting to kind of pander to other middle-aged white people that write about television about how not racist they are. Like, it was just, it had this weird vibe, this weirdness to it. Because it's not even like the Damon Lindelof is, he's a fucking nerd. He's a white, pasty nerd guy. He's the guy who was co-writer of Lost.
Which I still haven't seen Lost. No, but I really don't like when things have to be like very blatant, like beat you over the head. I'm more of an appreciator of like subtlety, and I feel like a lot of that show was not.
I mean, there's a time to be, I think, over, like, obvious or in your face or whatever, but when the whole thing is like that, it stops being interesting, and you're just like, I get it. Like, I got it from the end of the first episode. Like, okay, I know exactly what you're trying to say, because you're being so forceful with it. There's not even a sense of discovery for the rest of the show about the characters and stuff, because by the time you're done with like the first 2 episodes, like, you kind of know what to assume is going to happen because of the tone of the series. But anyways.
No, and I just said that kind of takes away what I feel they were able to do with the graphic novel, and even to a point the movie, where there is so much like kind of compacted into the story and into the universe that's going on socially, politically, everything, but it doesn't beat you over the head with any of it, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same way. I mean, the politics are a little more out there than some of the other nuances, but I still didn't feel like it was so obvious or
well, I think it's hard for us being our age to really know if that was the case, because if we had read this in 1986 and 87 when it was coming out, would we have felt like it was on the nose? Like, because it is directly kind of dealing with Reagan politics and Nixon and the Cold War, coming off of the Cold War. Like, it's directly dealing with those concepts, those ideas. So it was much more immediate. In the same way that when Frank Miller does The Dark Knight Returns, it's all about the commodification of the news, and it's about Reagan specifically. Reagan's literally in that book.
Yes.
So maybe it would have felt like annoying. I don't know. So maybe in 20 years, when somebody comes back to the show Watchmen, maybe they'll be able to not feel so. I don't know. Although I don't think it's as well written.
Weird, because like it is a lot of specific things, but I feel like over time, it's still a lot of the messages are still so applicable to like things we have gone through even in our time. Like, I think that's kind of the cool thing about a lot of like that graphic novel and the story is it is kind of like timeless in that sense, where it's You don't agree? That's how I
No,
feel.
I think I do think it's timeless. I think it's timeless because of the use of superheroes. I think it makes it abstract enough where you can pay attention to the principle of what like they're getting at,
Yeah,
rather
it's like
than rather than deal with the specifics of like the president's name and stuff like that. You can kind of look past that stuff because of it makes it feel like a science fiction version of it, an abstract experience that's talking about the philosophy
yeah,
of.
like the deconstruction of superheroes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, as much as it is about superheroes, it's also, I think, about the state of the world and
yeah,
what it requires for the world to like come together in some sort of kind of global effort, like globalization. It's like very pro globalization.
well, and I think that speaks to also kind of like the like I was just getting ready to like I was just mentioning like the deconstruction of the superhero because it also I think the whole also point of this was that it is the man part of like the Superman or the superhero is first and foremost in this, and the super part's secondary. You know what I mean? Because you're actually seeing them in a time where you see more of the human aspect of it, and you're kind of forced to because of the keynack and stuff. But it's breaking it down in that way. Does that make sense?
It is, but then I think part of the story is that like their alter egos are not actually separate from who they are. Like it is actually a calling.
They,
It is
like,
actually
they want them to be, yeah.
it's
For
who
some of them,
that is their potential. That is their highest potential is to be the superhero. And like and then they juxtapose that with like Dr. Manhattan being kind of the ultimate superhero, the ultimate ubermensch. He is the ideal. He's God.
yeah,
He's aspirational in nature. And in terms of like being able to do something actual real self-actualization, he is
yeah.
the ideal. And
And then I think on that end too, that's where you also have like Rorschach, right? Because he is, he has become Rorschach. He's not Walter Kovacs. He is Rorschach. You know.
well, I think
So
he
I mean,
wa-
I'm talking about like separation of identity, right?
but I think Walter Kovacs I
Goes
think he
back.
reclaims himself in the moments before he dies.
Yes.
Because I think Rorschach is something he puts up to be defensive. It's something to hide his vulnerability. Like,
Face. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. It's his mask and his shield that he puts up against the world. Like, because he does not want people to see him, like who he really is. It's all because Rorschach is all bluster. I mean, he's full of hot air. I mean, granted, he can beat bad guys up and stuff, but like the psychological motivations, he's not like a stable person. He's not really so even keel. He's not really that great of a detective. Like he's
No.
and it's kind of a show. It's all like a tough guy act because he
Yeah.
feels so vulnerable when he's just Walter Kovacs.
Yeah.
At least in my
Yeah.
opinion, anyways.
I mean, for me, I feel like he is kind of equal to Manhattan though, because I mean, I guess I'm gonna kind of disagree with you. I just feel like he did adapt it as like a face and like a shield to shield him from his like really shitty upbringing and stuff, and it became his thing. And then I think when he realized the power he had, because he innately felt that it should be like conviction, like it is my conviction to like that things need to be just, like I should be doing this because it's not like my persona. I'm not my selfish. I'm not narcissist. I mean, he's narcissist in a certain way, but like he's not solving crime or providing justice for those reasons. I think because he was so slighted in his youth, and then he, took on Rorschach as a persona. But then he does become Rorschach, and especially the big turning points with the pedophile. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
then he
no,
kind of,
yeah,
but then he's like Manhattan though, where then he just loses touch.
yeah, but he's lost himself in that moment because he stops because that is the first time he kills somebody,
Yeah,
and that's because he loses himself because now it's not about justice anymore. It's not about that anymore. Now he's a murderer. He has
that's
become the things that he hates, And I think the whole point, the point of him taking off his mask right before he dies, before he makes the ultimate sacrifice, or at least is posited in the story as basically being the ultimate sacrifice. He does it with his own face. He makes him look at Walter Kovacs and do it. Like Walter Kovacs reclaims his identity as like himself in that moment, saying, I choose to do this. I choose to do this, not Rorschach. That's why I do think there's a clear actual. I think that's why I think the facade of Rorschach is a character he plays, and I think he did when he got lost in himself.
But, well, if you go back to what we were talking about, the pedophile, and I think I tried to start talking to you about this during the movie, but then I was like, I'll save it. So it's different in the book because what he does is he actually handcuffs him to a radiator in the house. And then what he does is he turns the gas on, and then as he's like kind of talking and breaking him down and stuff, he gives him the option. He sets the house on fire, but he gives the guy the option: you cut your limb off and get out, or you let yourself burn to death. So he kind of still left decisions up to the guy. It wasn't that he walked up and meat cleavered him in the head.
Yeah, I think the movie.
I feel like there is a slight of a message difference in that.
So maybe there is just a character difference. Maybe the movie is just more of what I'm expressing, and the book is a little more nuanced.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong either. I might just see it differently.
I mean, it's a movie, but I think, and they have to kind of, and it's because of Zack Snyder, he just kind of forgoes nuance. So instead of and granted, you got to adapt something because that scene would go on for a long time. Even in the theatrical cut of the movie, it's not even as long as the one we watched. Like, I think it's actually cut out of the movie. I don't even think it's in it.
Right, and I think, to be fair, too, Watchmen is so jam-packed with nuance and side notes and this and that, you can't help but have to, like, really streamline things. But I will say Zack Snyder did a really, really good job of getting at least the major notes of the background history of, like, the Minutemen and of a lot of the characters to where you get a general notion of the high notes of what brought them to where they are. He did a very good job of that.
Yeah, he's a great visualist, and he knows how to put like a sequence together, like a montage.
Right.
I mean, everybody cites the opening montage as being one of the most amazing things ever. It's good. Like you could just watch that in a vacuum, and it's a cool thing with the Bob Dylan song playing, and it's just a really beautifully constructed thing that tells you so much.
And I feel, and I was gonna say, and I feel like, and like I was saying, well, even with the characters, you miss certain beats, like I was saying, because I mean, like in the graphic novel, they spent so much effort to like, you get the entire pretty much like file excerpts from Kovac's file from when he was expelled from schools and in like mental institutions, and then you get like, Blood on the Shoulder of Pallas that was written by Dan for like a ornithological like collection, and it gives you all these insights.
Because it takes advantage of the medium. Like it's like, and actually, honestly, it was a kind of a step forward for the medium because he was incorporating this literary side to a comic book that people really weren't familiar with at the time.
No, right, 100%. But
there's just no way to. I mean, and then there's no way to really. That's why people for years said you cannot adapt Watchmen. Because if you lose that stuff, it takes a lot out of the story.
Yeah, well, but what I'm saying is, I was getting to was, but I feel like he was able to grab a lot of those notes and get it there still in his montages and the way he kind of not only just visualized, but I think even adapted the parts of the like script and stuff that he chose to adapt from the graphic novel and everything. I feel like told the story very well. I feel like Watchmen's a very underrated film.
I like Watchmen. I like Zack Snyder's Watchmen overall, and it's a good way I can kind of experience the story in 3 hours. But like, I think he is almost too faithful. It's like slavish, and there is too much gets lost, and then some of his proclivities, some of his sensibilities actually undermine the subtext of the book. Zack Snyder is way too preoccupied with making something look cool sometimes.
What do you think gets lost?
What do you mean?
Like, what got lost from the graphic novel?
Well, because he's just doing panel for panel recreations without any of the context. Like, so when you cut out all that stuff, like, I understand he got a little bit of the history stuff in there, Um,
But what got lost?
what do you mean?
I'm
What
just
got
curious.
lost?
Like, what's the specific like? What do you think is a specific beat that got missed from the story that affected it? I was just curious.
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, it's been too long since I've like really thoroughly read Watchmen to really probably give a specific citation. But
Yeah.
there's a hollowness and a flatness to the movie. There's a mechanical nature to that movie. It's also a little plotting. It doesn't feel paced super well. Like it is
So do you
because
think
I think he's literally because he does so much that is like just scenes from the book or from the comic book, like panel for panel recreations, and they're gorgeous. They're awesome. They look cool. But I don't know if I just always felt like some of the substance of it was missing, and the nuance. And I think when you lose a lot of the history that they lose, because some of it is about generational shifting stuff and how things grow from how like one generation affects the next. Because that's why the book is always referring back to the past constantly. So when you're
do
reading
you mean
something that's happening in the immediate, then you're going to go back and read part of Under the Hood by Hollis Mason, like,
right?
and then he's going to
So
inform you about the
understanding the
past,
Minutemen a little more and stuff like that.
and that informs what the characters are going through in the present. And when you
Hmm.
miss some of that stuff, you're missing a lot of that subtext. I mean, and even the idea of this, because it's like the literalization of superheroes. Like he's trying to explore, like, well, if superheroes, like the government would use them. He fetishizes violence in the movie. Like they're kicking ass like they're fucking Batman and Batgirl at one point, and you're like, that's not the vibe of Watchmen. And when you
Yeah,
do that,
no.
I think you are undermining the point of Watchmen a little
I will
bit.
say like the super strengths and powers were kind of amped up for sure. I
And I
mean, but
think,
that also speaks to like we were saying or at least you were saying he's more of kind of like a bro dude. Not a bro
and
dude,
like I
but
said,
maybe I don't.
I
But
actually like Zack Snyder. Like I like listening to his interviews. I even like he did a couple fan events where he watched BVS and Man of Steel and did like live commentary.
yeah, that's
I
cool.
watch those. Like I don't say that in a way to be like disparaging to him. But I think he is so preoccupied with like capturing the visuals that sometimes I do think some of the performances can get lost. I mean, because if you look at something like what he did right before Watchmen, 300, and I know you haven't seen 300 in a long time. 300 is the perfect thing for Zack Snyder because 300 is a thin as fuck book.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So
They actually
he added a lot. Like
he had to.
Leonidas' wife is not that much of a thing in
No, 'cause,
it.
yeah, they added this entire subplot with this
Right.
political intrigue at the time. And but other than that, it is a almost shot for shot, panel for panel recreation of Frank Miller's book because that's what he's good at. Like, and
Hmm.
that's what he wants to do. He loves those things. He loves that era. All he wants to do is have Ben Affleck jumping while lightning is striking behind him. Like that's what he wants to do. And everything else be damned.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, I don't think a ton, like so much was lost in the history that really.
Yeah, but are you thinking about that as a person that is just very familiar with the book? So you
I
fill
mean,
in the gaps.
possibly. Possibly
Like,
actually.
because we were talking about this in regards to some other movies. We were talking about it. I had recently reread 1984, and we were supposed to do that tonight. Do the movie 1984 and
Sorry, I
talk
couldn't
about
help
the
you on
movie. But
that.
when I watched one of the things I noticed was that like, oh, if I hadn't just read the book, I'm not sure if this would play as well as it is. Same thing,
Yeah.
another Philip K. Dick book, A Scanner Darkly. I really like the movie A Scanner Darkly. We were talking, she's like, I have a hard time staying awake. And she's like, I think it looks cool, but and I enjoy it,
I,
but I
I
can't stay
mean,
awake because it
well,
is
to be fair, with Scanner Darkly, I guess I should preface with this. So I'd say the first like 3 or 4 times I tried to watch it, I was not in my right state of mind.
probably, yeah.
Which doesn't help. But then recently you were watching it, and I think I just got distracted with Foster, and I kind of just didn't. make effort to pay attention. So maybe if I
Yeah.
tried to watch again, but it is kind of like,
Okay.
you know.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think if you have not read the book of Scanner Darkly, like it almost will not make any sense. It just does not do the work to make that story adapt the story. It
Mhm.
doesn't like adapt it thoroughly enough. It does not or it does not try to turn the narrative into a film narrative. And I think in a lot of ways, Watchmen actually at the same time does not do enough work to adapt it to a movie. Like you should be able to make a 2-hour version of Watchmen,
Mhm.
a movie version of Watchmen that is perfectly coherent. You're gonna have to be vicious. You gotta and then the book fans wouldn't be happy, I guess. No pleasing comic book nerds, anyways. But
Well, I would say for me, the only thing I guess that was majorly lacking that was in the graphic novel that might help people in the movie, I guess, that hadn't read, they don't really talk about what the Keene Act is and does. That's really missing. The riots are there,
oh,
but it's
well,
and
he
there are
literally
little you see things floating around. I think it's mentioned a few times,
it's
but it's
mentioned a few
not.
times. Yeah, I
But
mean,
not to the extent that it is in the novel, to where it
well,
seems
obviously.
so impactful and important. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's stated enough in the movie. That's my opinion.
Oh well, I
That's
mean,
the only major thing. I'm actually fine with like the squid missing, and they got rid of the little insert comic and stuff. I mean, they did redid it later with like that motion
yeah.
comic or
Well,
whatever.
there's 3 different cuts of Watchmen. There's the theatrical cut, the director's cut, which is what we watched, and then there's the Ultimate Edition, which has the Black Freighter comic book and and the scenes with the guys at the newsstand, and it makes the movie 3 hours and almost 40 minutes long.
Thank you for not putting that one on tonight.
Yeah, I have it. I have that. I have it on DVD though. It's
I think
gross.
we watched it when we first started dating.
I don't remember.
Because I remember because I hadn't really seen it or something. We were watching it, but I'm glad we didn't watch that tonight. It's past our
No,
parents.
I think some of the things they changed I thought was good. Like you had mentioned the at the end in the graphic novel, it's like they invite either gets to come through an interdimensional portal or just fakes it.
He kidnaps a bunch of artists, and they design and then through like genetic manipulation, that's how he gets his tiger. By the way,
Yes.
I don't really
Okay,
talk
that's right.
about
That's
that.
right.
He They actually create this monster that actually dies upon arrival almost, but through its like writhing around does end up killing people in New York, but it doesn't survive.
No, it
Because
doesn't
it's like
survive.
a
No.
genetic abomination.
Yeah, but it kills enough people for it to serve its purpose to be like this false
Right,
flag.
right.
And I think when like making Doctor Manhattan the MacGuffin or whatever, I thought was a smart choice
And
actually.
they actually spread it out like more across the world in a sense, so it would give the world more of a reason to unite as opposed to, you know,
Yeah, and it
just
also
this
I
little
think
weird thing in New York,
it gives weight to Manhattan's decision. Like it actually kind of makes more sense because Manhattan would be like, no, well, it happens, so now we got to embrace it and see ya. I don't want to be here anymore.
Sparkle, sparkle.
Yeah.
Pulled
I mean,
real patents in there. No.
no, so I think there are some smart things. I was gonna say
Yeah,
I remember,
it's
but
fine.
I can't remember what I had. I had something in my mind and it just dissipated. So I guess it wasn't that important.
Well, I mean, the sparkle, sparkle really just.
I guess. What did you think of the casting overall of the movie? Who do you
I'm
like? Who's
fine.
your favorite? Who's your favorite?
Casting wise,
Who's your person that you're like they nailed it?
oh, Rorschach.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say Rorschach and Dan Dryberg. I think they nailed.
Well, and actually, I think the
And the comedian.
comedians.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean
Um,
Morgan is really
but
good. That's
then
another.
even
But that's
Doctor
you know what?
Manhattan's fine.
Oh,
You know,
actually no. I think everybody's great. I would say my favorites
except
though.
for. Sorry, go ahead.
My favorites are Patrick Wilson and Jackie Earl Haley. I like their chemistry.
Oh,
I've liked them more and more when I watch the movie.
mhm.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is great casting, almost too good, because
Yeah.
you like the comedian too much. This goes to another. This is another thing what I was talking about with Zack Snyder and his weird dissonance with violence and stuff. They go to the Vietnam scene. They introduce Vietnam and Flight of the Valkyries. They're invoking Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola's movie, and it's the coolest shit you've ever seen. And what's that? And there's fucking the comedian cackling with a cigar in his mouth, blowing people away while Dr. Manhattan's blowing people away. It's okay that he's doing that, but they make it like almost a hero moment because it's the way it almost romanticizes it. It fetishizes it because he wants it to look cool. So that's what I'm talking about.
I think it totally encapsulates like where the comedian was in his mindset. He was fucking sadistic and gross and
yeah, but it's not from his POV.
But him like cackling, being like,
no, it's okay. No, it's okay for him to do that. I'm talking about the way the scene plays, like the way it is filmed.
Oh, you're just like, this is so cool.
No, Zack Snyder, he just can't help himself. Like he's just like, it's gotta be the most badass thing you've ever seen. And when it's kind of like, shouldn't this be like a little darker?
Yeah.
Like a little darker of a moment. Because by the end of that sequence, you're like, well, you know what? You know, that lady shouldn't have gotten in his face.
But he did release...
It's cool as fuck. What are you talking about?
He released the big blue dong during that sequence, so thank you. Thank you for that.
Not in that sequence. No, he's
that's later when they're bowing down to him. That's right.
No, he has his thing on the entire sequence. This is before he was freed.
No, when they go like this?
Yes, he's got his thing on.
That's so ridiculous. See,
he should have been
free the dong. See, we're talking about release the Snyder cut, release the dong cut.
Well, that's actually comic book accurate because he stops wearing clothes. It's like a metaphor for him losing his humanity.
I'm just being goofy. I know.
Sarah just wants to see blue dongs all the time. The only person that it didn't bother me as much this time was Molly Ackerman as Laurie.
I can't. That's the one thing that bothers me in that movie. I don't know how to explain it. She's very flat to me, and there's no real like spark. She seems bored the whole time.
Oh, I would go that far. I just think
that's my personal opinion. I don't think she was a good fit.
I don't know who I would suggest to take the role though. So
I don't either.
Like, alternate.
I will say Silk Spectre 1 was perfectly cast too.
Carla Gugino, and she gives a very specific performance. Like she's like playing it like a 40s actress would.
Yeah, she's a dame, you know?
Yeah, that's how she plays it. She plays like a character from a 1940s movie, which, you know.
I think it's great.
Overall, it's pretty good. It works.
I mean, I will say, though, Hooded Justice, it kind of comes into question why he's talking German and all crazy in the movie, but then in the show, Hooded Justice, we find out
doesn't he do an accent to hide to obfuscate his identity?
I can't remember.
I imagine they must have done. The show at least was very like faithful.
Okay. Well, maybe I didn't remember.
I could be wrong. I don't remember, but yeah.
The bastard.
But yeah, that was another thing, you know, and this is another thing that like just Snyder's not really great at knowing how to deal with, and it's also just the weight or the breadth of the movie and like how much they had to do is like, I mean, like the rape sequence it's like a fucking superhero fight.
Well, they are superheroes.
I know that. It's kind of weird, that's all. I mean, it's a brutal scene, honestly, and especially this time I watched it. Maybe it's just I'm getting soft in my old age, but it's a brutal scene. And it's the more heartbreaking thing is her reaction to it, like years later, is to be like, kind of this boys will be boys. It's complicated,
which is like, how it would have been back then.
A lot of women would have been back then, so it's kind of sad.
A lot of people are still like that, sadly.
And then I noticed in the movie, I couldn't remember if this was in the book or not. It might have been, because they kind of like...
Tell you.
What?
I might be able to tell you what.
Oh, yeah. When all the businessmen are talking to Vite, when he's first talking about his energy solution, like he's gonna like make unlimited energy basically. So
I don't think so. Because that's
no, I'm
like,
not
that
asking.
plays into the Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, it's not the question I'm asking, but yeah.
No, I'm saying, because the Dr. Manhattan plan's not even in the graphic novel. So I
No,
don't think so. No, I'm
yeah.
saying I don't think
Well,
so.
I mean that doesn't play into the Doctor Manhattan destruction plot. He's using it in he ends up using part of it to be like a thing to obscure his ability to see. He uses this machine,
Yeah.
but anyways, no. But the reason I brought it up was not specifically because of the energy thing. It's because
Mhm.
they're basically acting like McCarthyists. They're like accusing him of being a communist, like Red Scare stuff,
Mhm. I
because
don't
of
know if
his
that happened.
because of his globalist intentions, basically.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, we'll have to see who you were hanging out with like recently.
Maybe I'll have to. I don't remember if that happened. I don't think it does, but I might be wrong.
Because it showed to me like whether or not this happened, saying whether or not like Vite does the false flag, his thing that he's working on, if he was working on an energy thing, which he very well could have been doing at the same time,
Yeah.
would have fundamentally changed life for people, you know.
No, 100%. Yeah.
And I guess it seems like there was a little bit of commentary about corporatism and people being like, no, the light bulb must burn out. Planned obsolescence,
We're gonna
dog.
keep digging for those fossil fuels.
It's called planned obsolescence, motherfucker. Read a book, Vite. Read a book. You know,
He
this little
has
fun fact,
read all the
everybody.
books.
Little fun fact. In the Smithsonian, the first ever light bulb is there and it is still on. They actually devised a way for light bulbs to burn out. Don't forget that. Just letting you know. Just letting the people know.
Whose design is that, Sean?
Thomas Edison.
Tesla. Edison was
Tes-
an asshole.
Tesla Tesla developed the first light bulb?
He developed a lot that Edison stole from him.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're one of these. You're one of these Tesla truthers. Is that what Do you have you ever
Edison
heard
was.
of QAnon?
Yes.
It's just a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke because I called you a truther. And I figured
Oh,
you'd be into wild, crazy conspiracy theories like Q.
I might be.
You never
You
know.
never. I'm not going to talk about that on the movie podcast.
I can't. It'll compromise my position in the community.
100%.
Why are you talking about this, lady? What have you done? What have you
No.
done? Gotta get us banned off yet another platform. Um, it's got some great moments. I really enjoyed watching it because I just like the vibe. I like the characters. It is cool in that kind of way when you watch like a comic book movie or an adaptation of something you've read, just to kind of see the world realized.
Yeah. I will say I like some of the music moments, and sometimes I'm just like,
Yeah, they're awkward. They don't feel like they're appropriate for the scenes they're in.
no.
It's like it's weird, you know. I mean,
But
other
in a
than
way, too, actually, now that I just said that out loud, I think maybe, too, that was his way of kind of, because in the graphic novel, there's a really good way that they do those, like the still frames and the introductions into the chapters, but the chapters all have a quote and a really interesting title. You know what I mean? That kind of feeds into the next like little bit of the story. So maybe that was his way of kind of like doing that. And he even does actually, especially like with the comedian's funeral, he does the exact um shot of the statue pretty much, and that's the
yeah,
chapter start for that. Well, I'm just saying to me the music was kind of his way of doing that. I didn't even
oh,
I'm just saying, I just after saying that out loud, maybe that's what that
yeah,
was.
he used them for transitions to
Yeah,
transition
but
from one
sometimes
thing to the next.
it's distracting.
It's like when 99 Red Balloons comes on.
That's
I feel
exactly
like
the one I'm
it's
thinking
like
of.
he's like, you know what'd be sweet? Fucking put fucking
Oh,
99 red balloons and be like, oh
but
fuck,
we can't use the German version.
oh fuck, dog, no, 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 no. I want people to know.
They got
my
another
impression of
nuclear
Zack Snyder
war,
ripping a
but
bong.
in English.
That's what he does. He rips sick fucking rips from bongs, and then he's like, "I got ideas, fellas. Let's go." And
Cool story, bro.
then he has like little people at his feet with typewriters.
That went too far.
He's like, "Oh shit, you guys getting a contact tie?" They're like, "No, we're fine, Zach. We're fine."
Are you typing all this?
Listen, what if
Get
her name? What if they talked to each other and they were like, "Oh, dude, our moms are Martha." Be sick. I'd be fucking sick, dog. That's one of those things that works on paper, but then when you see it in a movie, you're like, "Nah, it's a little goofy." When I actually have to watch
so
it,
many good jokes from that though. So it's yeah.
I just feel bad because I'm like, on paper that works. I understand. I get it. They're both named Martha. It is a connection to their mutual humanity. But in the movie, it just plays goofy. But
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan wouldn't fall to that, though. He'd be like, "Nah, peace out, dog. Fuck your Marthas. I hope they
He
die."
already knew about the Marthas in the '80s. Like that's why he was like, I gotta get out of here for that shit happens.
No, when we first met, I think one of the disagreements we had in terms of like pop culture disagreements is like you like are a Dr. Manhattan stan.
I like Dr. Manhattan.
And I find this very sick and disturbing. She had a Dr. Manhattan poster in her room when I met her from the movie, which I don't actually like any of the promotional materials for the movie. Like those posters are god
It
awful.
was the best quote, and I was like, "That's cool." And I
What
like
was the
Dr.
quote?
Manhattan.
What was the quote? Do you remember it?
It's the humanity quote where he's talking about how he's just gonna leave humanity. He's like,
He's like, I don't feel connected to this anymore or something.
yeah. I mean, but obviously over time. I mean, no, but also when you met me, I have a night owl related tattoo. So I mean,
Yeah,
like,
show the people at home. Show it center frame. See, look at that.
yeah.
That's
I mean, it's a dual me. It's the still frame from Blood on the Shoulder of Palace, the side story he writes.
Yeah, it's the picture from his book.
Yeah,
And
it's just an article he wrote for an ornithological journal collection. It's not his book. Thank you.
good thing she knew that, because imagine if she showed the tat and she was like, I don't know. How embarrassing that would have been.
Well, it's got like a dual meaning too because it's Athena and Glaucon.
Who cares? I'm just joking.
No, I know. It's not, but I do really like Dr. Manhattan. I don't know how. I mean, you're like a Rorschach guy though, so I'm a little nervous.
No, I'm a Dan Dryberg guy.
I'm joking.
I'm all about Dan Dryberg. He's the hero of the story for me.
I'll bring you your can of beans later, you know?
Well, hey. Like I think when I was a kid, Rorschach, like for most people, I think when they read it, you're taken with Rorschach. He's the most provocative, aggressive character.
I actually did not. Rorschach was always kind of like, yeah, Greg, my uncle, like, Rorschach was always his favorite, always. I think still is to this day. Later when I saw.
Is your uncle a sick? Is he like a sociopath? He's like a sick
I
fuck?
don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Just joking.
No, so Sean and I, we were doing kind of like podcasts and one-offs, and I just got this idea. I started writing. I never finished it, of course, but I like got this idea to treat Watchmen as like a modern romantic with the capital R kind of work.
Yeah,
and
the
so
literary
my goal,
tradition.
yeah, and philosophical tradition and whatever. And so what I would do is my goal was to write an article about each character and how they played into that, and then I was going to do a culminating essay and do it all together. And then we used to do a little podcast about each article.
Yeah, we did a podcast for each.
I made it to
all
two.
two of them. Yeah. Ultimate Watchmen discussions. They're probably still out there.
They are, actually. I saw them tonight because I just kind of refreshed myself. But I did not gain more appreciation for Rorschach until I started doing that. So I did Dan Dryberg as my first one, and then I got into Rorschach, and then I was supposed to get into Osmandius third, and I just didn't do it because I'm lazy and I'm whatever. But I'm too ambitious. But
you can always start again.
I can. But once I started doing that and getting like way deep into Rorschach and seeing him in that light, which actually I got some comments. They're like, "You don't understand Rorschach if this is how you're talking about him." And I'm like, "Nah, I think I'm pretty good on him." That's when I got a new appreciation for Rorschach. So when I first got introduced to Watchmen, he was not my initial Well, mine was Dr. Manhattan.
See, she gravitates to power. Sick.
Blue dongs,
Blue
No,
Dongs.
I really enjoyed the watchmaker story and kind of all that, and that always grabbed me. And I thought his story
Yeah.
was pretty compelling, and actually the way they tell it in the graphic novel, and they do an okay job in the movie, but I just think the way he's presented there, I just
Wait, what
kind of
sequence?
gravitated to him.
The
Huh?
Watchmen, the Doctor Manhattan origin sequence in the movie.
No,
That's one of the best parts. It's one of the most
no.
incredible
I think
montages ever.
No, I'm just saying they do a pretty okay job in the movie
Oh my
too. I'm
god,
just saying,
pretty okay. Listen to this person, Zach. She's a psycho. You gotta hunt her
okay,
down.
okay, DC apologists. No,
No, I think honestly, in terms of just even in a vacuum, that sequence is incredibly effective. It's
no,
incredibly
100%,
effective, and
dude.
it is almost panel for panel the same as
And
the
when he
graphic novel.
gets locked in the thing, and he's just and then when he closes his eyes and accepts his fate, perfect. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just saying that to me, when I first read Watchmen, I just gravitated towards him. He was my favorite.
Yeah,
But I agree with you. Dan's always been kind of 2 or 3 for me. Yeah.
2 or 3. Jesus, he's the heart of the story. He's the heart and soul.
Well, see, okay. I'm gonna bring up my one weird, nerdy thing with the show I had an issue with. So we're after,
Are we talking about the show?
yeah, the show. It's just one little thing,
Okay.
and it has to relate to Dan. So, we're after the movie or the story, right? The main story, correct? Which is, we're going off the movie, correct? Or just the story in general?
What is the show?
Yeah, the show.
The show is
sequel.
Sequel to the comic book.
Right. So why is Lori going by Lori? And why is Dan still Dan Dryberg?
Mm-hmm.
They assume at the end of the graphic novel, they run away and they continue to be themselves in secret, but they assume new identities. They take Hollis as their last name. I said this when we watched the show. It really bothered me.
I mean, I guess they might have a throwaway line about it. I don't know.
I didn't hear anything. And I just
because if
irritated me.
they take Hollis as their last name, but in the show they're divorced or something, or they never got married.
Dan's in jail.
Yeah, he's in federal FBI. Sounds like Lori probably arrested him.
Probably.
That's one of the things I really was kind of. It was just I don't know, as a character development for Lori Jupiter. For her, to still be obsessed with Dr. Manhattan, doesn't that just undermine the journey of Lori in the fucking story? Yeah. So she's been pining for Dr. Manhattan for 50 years or however long it's been. You're like, it's just to me, it was just whatever. That's just.
She missed the D. No.
Yeah, well, she did. She had a giant blue dildo.
Sometimes there were 5 of him around her.
Yeah.
She's just a hoe.
It's a lot
She's
of
a hoe
dildos.
like her mom, okay? No, I'm kidding. Sorry, no. I agree, because the whole thing was her finally, her and Dan just kind of, maybe something happened that they didn't really explain in the show. I don't know.
Yeah,
but that was her whole journey.
No, but for her to be literally obsessed with Dr. Manhattan, I mean,
going to those weird booths or
I think the angle the writers have, well, he was a god. If you've been with a god, if you fell in love with a god, wouldn't you be obsessed with them? That's just yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it would be too much. I just feel like I'm exhausted.
No, it's
in the movie. You're just this is tiring.
It's modern storytelling, postmodern bullshit where you're not allowed to have people that have changed or become heroes or whatever. Everything has to be a shallow deconstruction. Watchmen does a good job, but the characters do change and grow and come out the other side being more complete. They don't bother doing anything like that in the show, and they're
Well, I
just
mean,
all cynical, miserable human beings, and there is like nobody to really. You only root for the main characters because you think you're supposed to, because if you don't, then you're racist. Like, they're not good characters. They're not written. The best written character is the fucking the guy who's got the disco ball head, the fucking reflective mask. Where's the
he wears the
tinfoil?
Rorschach. Yeah, oh, what's his name? I think it's like Mirror Mask or something stupid
Yeah,
like.
yeah. He is the best written character, and even he's
I just
like,
laughed because you were like the disco ball.
yeah,
Well, I do. I like I said at the beginning of this. I think Jeremy Irons did really good as Adrian.
yeah. He's cast fantastically. That's perfect casting. And it
Yes,
makes it actually feel like a sequel to the movie because you could totally believe that Matthew Good would grow up to be Jeremy Irons.
adapted the accent and everything.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy Irons is, he's a good actor.
I can't help but think of Scar though. That's my problem.
I don't know. So to me that indicates you have not seen enough movies with Jeremy Irons in
I
it.
haven't, so take me on the journey.
You got to go see Dead Ringers, David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers, where he
I will
plays
add it
twin
to.
brothers that are OBGYNs that have like weird fetish shit. It's crazy. It's a weird movie.
Interesting. So we get double the irons in that movie.
You get double the irons, yeah.
Okay. So I'll increase my movie watching of his to 3. That
You've
counts
really-
as 2, right?
Yeah, true.
Right? Okay.
Well, I mean, you saw Jeremy Irons in the film Batman v Superman.
Oh, that's right.
He's Alfred. He's a pretty good Alfred too. He's not bad.
Yeah, I forgot. Is that bad that I forgot?
No, not really. I mean, you have not seen those nearly as many times as I have. You have no personal investment because you're a fake fan. You're not really,
I'm not a fake fan.
I'm gonna get on the grift
I
train.
am a fan of what I like stories in DC. The movies, not so much. I have no allegiance to their studios.
I'm gonna get on the grift train and just be like a fanboy and just love everything. Like, oh my god, did you see? Did you see this hot drop?
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I'll be doing hot react videos instead of my like parody of reaction videos, which is right now is listening to old rap songs from the late 90s and reading way too much into them. It's a great time, everybody. Check out my video, Hot Reacts Only, first episode, actually second episode technically, but we don't talk about the first one. Hot Reacts Only, LL Cool J's Deepest Bluest Shark Fin. And give you a moment-to-moment rundown. We pause it, we talk about the subtext of the song, we talk about the lyrics. It's a beautiful time. And when I say we, I mean me. Alone in the middle of the night.
Don't say we when you're talking to me. Don't implicate me with bullshit.
I don't know. What else do you think? What else? Do you got anything else? Any other thoughts about the experience of revisiting Watchmen?
No, I mean it's still always a good time. I'm serious. It's just to me, I just enjoy watching it because I just enjoy that story and that universe so much.
Yeah, and I would say as kind of like a Cliff Notes, a short version, short way to kind of just experience the story. Like I can appreciate it on that level. I do.
I think it like that. It is the abbreviated way to enjoy that, and like I know you were kind of saying you didn't maybe necessarily agree. I feel like you get enough of the broad strokes of it to get. I don't think there's a ton lost between.
Well, it's just. It took them forever to figure out how to adapt this. I mean, this has been a thing since like 1990, since a couple years after it came out.
After it came out, yeah.
There was Terry Gilliam was attached to it for years.
That would have been the wrong move. I'm sorry, because it would just been meandering and.
How dare you?
That would have been the key.
Why don't you go watch a Wes Anderson movie, you hack?
I will, thank you, because it'll be pleasant for me to fall asleep to, because it's late.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard, and I think he did probably the best job you could really do if you're going to do a straight adaptation of Watchmen.
Yeah,
because it definitely feels he clearly loves the comic book, and he clearly took a lot of time trying to recreate the comic book. Maybe that's not a great thing when you're making a movie. I don't know. I don't know. You know.
I think it's fine.
I just I wonder what people like who are not familiar with any of the comic books that have seen or even have seen like the theme to be like that has no awareness of Watchmen, has never seen it or read it,
I
what they would
I've
think
seen
of
a
it.
couple. I've seen a couple comment threads in some like Watchmen discussions. In my time, because that's what I do. And there were people that they were like, "Is it worth reading? Because I really enjoyed this story, or I really thought this was neat." And generally, people are like, "Yeah, if you could really dig the movie, like you definitely should, check out the graphic novel and stuff." And they, say there's a little more side things that'll help you enjoy it a little bit more possibly, but overall, it's just they enjoyed the story and what it was. So for
Yeah.
me, it just seems like it did translate fine enough to where, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
that's what I've seen. I'm not like an expert, but I was just saying, just in my time losing.
Are you not an internet anthropologist? Is that what they call it? Like, are you digging down there? You're a internet forensic detective, digital forensics.
Yeah.
Oh, let me see this tweet thread. What does he say? Watchmen is for nerds. No, I mean, I, I don't know. I'm curious what that experience would be like for somebody who's just not familiar with it. I don't know. I'll never have that experience.
Well, you can. Okay, there's this thing called Google.
No, I don't. I don't want to read some bullshit, some liar. There's nothing. Nothing is true on the internet, Sarah. Everything's fake,
Yep.
including this podcast. It's not even really
Yeah.
happening.
Speaking of not really happening, excited to see Inception.
Oh yeah, I guess you will be seeing Sarah again probably within the next few weeks. We are slated to go to the theater. We're gonna go see Inception for its 10th anniversary. IMAX, fucking like $6 a ticket, or it's like crazy.
What? I
What?
know. I'm excited because we did Scott Pilgrim, and now we're doing another 10th anniversary. I mean, Watchmen's 11th anniversary, so we kind of missed the mark. But
Yeah, yeah.
I had to pinch hit for Paul. Huh. You
What a
owe me,
sick
Big
guy.
Paul.
What a sick guy. I can't believe he would send his son a letter like that. Good thing I intercepted it. Good guy,
I know,
Sean.
right?
Saved the day.
Good save, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to go see. I have not watched Inception in a couple of years, probably, and I've been like kind of wanting to watch it again. I've been rewatching other Nolan movies. I watched Interstellar and Insomnia. Might throw. What else do I have of his? Might watch The Dark Knight or something. I don't know.
Can we watch The Dark Knight Rises? Because we haven't watched that enough while we've been together, which is a lie. We've watched that a ton of times.
Yeah, it's a fun movie to watch. Like it's obviously my least favorite of the Nolan Batman movies,
You
but
fool! You fool!
who's a fool? You want to watch it too. You're a liar. She's so full of it, guys. She's like,
Wait, what do you mean No, I said you were a fool for it being your least favorite.
oh, my least favorite. Okay.
You
I
fool.
thought you were calling me a fool for watching it so many times.
No! That's
It's a
my
very watchable
favorite.
movie. What I love about The Dark Knight Rises is
Batman Begins is 3.
Oh, I don't know actually. I think if you revisit Batman Begins, it might be your favorite.
No.
The most like Batman one.
3.
Okay. Anyways, when you watch The Dark Knight Rises, every time you watch it, there's a part of you that hopes it will be a better movie, and it never is. you're like maybe this time I'll see something I didn't before. It'll make like the third act work, and it never presents itself.
I just want Bane's coat from that movie. Can we talk about that?
And Nolan's such a cocksucker. He's like, no, I put this out. This is what you get. You don't get anything else. There is nothing else, guys. He will not ever. He just won't release any other versions of his movies. He says, no, these are my director's cuts. I was like, okay, well, swing and a miss there, Chris.
I don't think I can try and watch Dunkirk again, because when you were watching it that one day and I was in the room, that score literally gave me. I literally had anxiety. I was like, I have to get away from this, which is good. It was effective.
Dunkirk is a great movie.
I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack, so I don't know if I could ever. No, like I felt it in my body. I was like, I can't.
Dunkirk is probably
that
at the end of the day, probably Nolan's best movie. Technically.
Well, that's fine. I won't watch it because it literally.
It's a movie that literally you have to watch it more than once because of the way he puts it. Because he does this Nolan thing where he's fucking around with time and stuff. So you have to like actually watch it more than once to really be able to follow it.
I can't take that score, man. I can't. It was no.
Well, I guess I'll be seeing Tenet alone.
Is it supposed to be like that?
Yes.
Oh, I'll try it, but I can't promise it.
You heard it here, folks. Tenet by myself. All right. Do you have any closing thoughts, Sarah?
No. Thanks for having me.
All right. You're welcome. Never again.
Oh, okay. I don't have to go to Inception. I'm kidding. I want to go to Inception.
Yeah, I don't have to go. We haven't been to a movie theater in like a year.
I know, and then actually, because we're marked safe from COVID now.
Yeah, we're COVID survivors. We're enlightened. Okay, we have the plasma. We have the antibodies. We're like daywalkers in Blade. We got vampire powers, but we can walk outside during the day.
Oh my God. You can only refer to me as Blade, though.
What if we just both Blade and we both do Wesley Snipes impressions?
Don't try me, because I will do it tomorrow.
What you doing, motherfucker? Motherfucker, you out of your goddamn mind?
I ain't taking those cactus.
Fucking love Blade, dude. The first Blade is amazing. If Blade was playing in the movie theater, I would drop everything, and me and Foster would go see Blade one afternoon.
You talk about that kid not paying attention. He would not give up.
He would love Blade. He would love Blade. All kids love Blade.
Yeah, Sean.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, you want to keep up to date with everything Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter. I talk about movies, I meme, I do all sorts of fun stuff on there. Also, if you'd like to make a request for one of these videos or one of the daily videos that I do, it's nice to have some direction sometimes. Sometimes if somebody says, hey, watch this, it's easier. I have a lot of movies, so it narrows the field for me. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming, Sarah.
Anytime.
Goodbye. I'll see you in 10 seconds.
Yep.